Lunar Orbiter 2, NASA's probe, photographs this area on the moon, and what's so bizarre is that this area has undeniable architecture.
Data started flowing from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, and it immediately broke every rule the scientists had for the moon. This signal was not about deep space or faraway stars, but about the ground right beneath our feet. The moon is pulsing with a strange energy that has everyone at NASA worried. Believe it or not, it gets even weirder when you look at the temperature readings from the dark side.
Simply from the fact that the moon has been bombarded in kind of an incessant meteoric rain for 4.5 billion years.
Plain and simple, we are looking at a world that is very much alive in ways we never thought possible. Here is the part that trips everyone up. We might have to restart all our plans for space. Silent signal from the dark side. On the night of March 15, 2024, a signal from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter flickered across screens. This happened at the Goddard Space Flight Center, and it started an urgent chain of emails between the biggest space groups in the world. The data was not what anyone expected. It showed that the moon was doing things that did not match the books. To start things off, we have to look at the temperature. The sunlit side of the moon gets as hot as 248 degrees Fahrenheit. The dark side drops to minus 274 degrees Fahrenheit. But in 2023, a group of researchers found a pit in the Sea of Tranquility that stayed at 63 degrees Fahrenheit all the time. That is like having a perfectly air-conditioned room on a world that should be a frozen desert or a hot oven. 63 degrees is basically room temperature. This is the part that makes absolutely no sense to people who study rocks. If you look a little closer, you find the real story is about how this heat stays so steady. Natural caves on Earth usually have a little bit of change in their air, but these lunar pits showed a steady temperature that never moved. Most folks have no idea that this kind of stability is extremely rare in nature. Let's switch gears for a second and look at the actual ground. These pits might be openings to lava tubes. Those are giant tunnels carved by old volcanoes a long time ago. But the thermal stability was just too perfect. It was as if something was keeping the room exactly the same for years and years. NASA is not saying it is a base, but they are saying it is a big puzzle. They call it a strange heat event. The part that nobody talks about is how these pits could be the perfect place for people to live one day. But there is a bit of a snag. We don't know why they are so warm inside. If the moon is a dead rock, it should be cold all the way through. But something is keeping the heart of the moon warm enough to feel like a spring day on Earth. This changed everything, no question about it. The mystery gets deeper when we look at how the moon actually sounds. Ghost echoes in the core. To understand what is inside, we have to go back to 1969. Most people know about the landing, but they don't know about what happened when the astronauts left. When the Apollo 12 module crashed into the surface, the moon rang like a bell. It did not just shake for a second, it vibrated for nearly 60 minutes. Plain and simple, that should not happen on a solid rock. If you hit a big rock with a hammer, it makes a thud. But the moon acted like it was a giant hollow ball. One famous scientist said this was deeply unexpected. The echoes showed that the inside was way more complex than our maps showed. Fast forward a little bit, and things look totally different with our new tools. We used a mission called Grail to map the gravity of the moon. This mission used 2 spacecraft to feel the tiny pulls of gravity across the surface. They found huge spots of heavy material buried deep underground. Most of these were from old asteroids hitting the surface, but they found a spot on the far side that was different. It did not match any impact model. The density pattern suggested a shape that was too perfect to be an accident. It was a huge mass concentration that shouldn't be there. Believe it or not, it gets even weirder when you look at the size of it. We are talking about a mass that is hundreds of miles wide. It is sitting right under the surface of an old crater. Some think it is a bunch of metal from an asteroid, but the shape is all wrong. To put it in simple words, it looks like a giant structure. Here is the part that trips everyone up. If there is something huge and heavy inside the moon, why did it ring for an hour? Most folks look right past this part because it seems like a contradiction. How can it be heavy and hollow at the same time? This is the tiny detail that almost everyone misses. The moon has layers that we are only just now beginning to understand. If you take away all the noise, it's about the fact that we don't know the makeup of the lunar core. We assumed it was a small iron ball, but the gravity maps say something else is going on down there. The strange sounds from the past are now being matched by heat from the present. Hidden fire under the gray. Let's take a real honest look at what is actually happening with the volcanoes on the moon, because the story we've been told for decades is falling apart. For the longest time, basically every scientist on the planet was convinced the moon had been a dead, frozen rock for at least 1 billion years. The common wisdom was that all the lava had dried up, the internal engine had stalled out, and the core was nothing more than a cold, solid lump of iron. But then came the data from 2024, and suddenly the textbooks looked like they belong in the fiction section. While everyone was looking at the obvious craters and the dusty plains, something incredible was happening over in the ocean of storms. This place is a massive dark scar on the lunar surface made of ancient, hardened lava. But new readings show it's not as ancient as we thought. Thermal data is coming back with some truly wild results, showing that the ground there is heating up and cooling down in a rhythm that doesn't match the sun at all. On a dead rock, the temperature should only change based on whether the sun is hitting it, but here something deep underground is generating its own heat. This isn't just a minor error in the math, it's a total rewrite of lunar history. One scientist described it by saying the heat was coming and going in distinct bursts, almost as if the moon itself is breathing. Believe it or not, the mystery gets even weirder the deeper you dig into the recent findings. A major study from 2024 discovered evidence suggesting the moon might have had active, flowing volcanoes only 100 million years ago. Now, in the context of space-time, 100 million years is like yesterday. It's a blink of an eye. If the moon was spitting out fresh lava that recently, it means the interior is still packing a serious amount of heat. It's likely full of radioactive elements like thorium and uranium. Elements that act like a slow-burning battery, creating intense heat as they break down over millions of years. This finally gives us a real answer as to why those mysterious lunar pits stay at a steady 63 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not just insulation from the dust. It's the leftover heat from the core rising up through ancient volcanic tunnels like steam from a subway grate. But this discovery brings a massive problem with it. If the moon is still geologically active, it means the ground isn't the solid foundation we thought it was. It means moonquakes can happen at any time, and they aren't just little tremors. We've measured quakes that hit a level 5 on the scale, which is plenty of power to move heavy furniture, crack thick walls, and ruin a lunar habitat. On Earth, a quake is usually a quick hit and run that lasts for a few seconds because our wet, soft crust absorbs the energy. But the moon is different. Because it is so dry, brittle, and incredibly stiff, a quake can last for over 10 minutes. The energy just keeps bouncing around inside the rock like a pinball in a machine that won't shut off. This has completely flipped the script for the people planning to build permanent houses and bases up there. You honestly could not make this stuff up. If the ground is still shifting and the core is still cooking, the moon is a much more volatile and dangerous place than anyone ever imagined. We are just beginning to see the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the fire hidden under all that gray dust. It turns out our dead neighbor has a lot more life left in it than we ever gave it credit for. The dangerous heat is not the only thing that could stop us from staying. Deadly dust and secret heat. But here is where it gets tricky when we talk about the dust. Every inch of the moon is covered in a fine powder called regolith. It looks like soft sand, but it is actually like tiny shards of glass. Since there is no wind or water to smooth the rocks, the dust stays sharp and jagged. Most people look right past this part, but it is a huge health risk. During the Apollo missions, the dust stuck to everything. It acted like it was alive because of the static electricity. It ate through the seals of the spacesuits and scratched the visors. One astronaut even had a bad reaction that felt like hay fever just from breathing it in. Recent tests in labs showed that this dust can actually destroy lung cells. It is one of the most toxic things a person can touch, and it does not even stop there. The dust is also affected by the heat anomalies we found. When the temperature shifts, the static charge on the dust changes. This makes the dust float in a weird way during the lunar night. It creates a glowing mist that hangs over the ground. If you look a little closer, you find the real story is that the moon is trying to push us away. It is a world of sharp glass and electric mists. To say it was a big problem is not even the half of it. NASA is worried that the dust will get into the machines and break the air filters. If we want to live in those 63-degree pits, we have to find a way to stop the dust from coming inside. But it is not as easy as it looks. The dust is so small that it can go through almost any fabric. Plain and simple, the moon is a harsh place that doesn't want visitors. Here is the part that trips everyone up. The more we learn about the dust and the heat, the more we realize we are not ready. We thought we knew how to handle a space rock, but the moon is a complex system that we don't fully understand yet. The risks are rising, but the pull of the mystery is even stronger. Wait, there is one big problem with our current maps. We are planning to go back with the Artemis mission, but the new data says we might be landing in the wrong spots. Most folks have no idea that the south pole of the moon is full of ice, but it is also full of those strange gravity pulls. If we land a ship there, the ground might not be as solid as we think. NASA is sending a rover called Viper to look for water, but Viper will also be checking the heat. If it finds more of those warm spots, it could change where we build the first lunar base. Let's switch gears for a second and look at the big picture. Why is the moon still surprising us after all this time? It is because we treated it like a dead map instead of a real world. The moon is still evolving and shrinking. As it cools, the crust wrinkles like a piece of fruit. This creates cliffs that are hundreds of feet high. These cliffs are where the most moonquakes happen. If we build a base near a cliff, it could be knocked down in a single night. To put it in simple words, we need to be much more careful. Could the moon be much younger than we were told? Tell me what you think about these heat secrets in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more space mysteries.